Hello, everyone. My name is Joanne, and I'm a senior at Brown studying biomedical engineering. I've been working on NaloxBox Plus with Drs. Kobiyashi and Dr. Praro since for a couple years now, and today I'm here to present on the updates for that. Do y'all want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, Jeff Caparo, thanks for inviting us to share progress and presentation for the results.
I'm Leo Kobiyashi, emergency physician. Work with Jeff and Joanne, and thanks again for inviting us to present our NaloxBox work.
Thanks so much for being here. We're really excited to hear about this today.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and get started then. So I received a summer research assistant grant for the past couple summers. I've been working on this, and we have no funding support from Google, Microsoft, or Particle or any of those things, but these are the rest of our disclosures. All right, so for some background, as I'm sure you guys all know, there has been a rise in opioid overdose in the past few years, and the annual deaths currently in the US are over 100,000, including 26% increase in just 1 year in Rhode Island from 2019 to 2020. These opioid overdose deaths can occur in many different areas, but one of the main places is in the public. And in Rhode Island in 2022, a third of the overdose deaths due to opioids occurred in public spaces. And one of the primary people who can help in these cases are bystander rescuers that are trained in rescuing with naloxone, and they're protected by Good Samaritan laws in 47 of the US states. So there's actually a drug to help reverse the effects of opioid overdose, and that is naloxone. So naloxone is an opioid antagonist, and it binds to the receptors that opioids bind to and reverse the effects of the opioid. Naloxone can be given intramuscularly and intravenously, but also intranasally, which is the primary way that bystander rescuers can utilize naloxone in order to help people in a pre-EMS setting. And as of 2023, it's available over the counter in the United States. So we wanted to address the gap of how do we bring this naloxone to people in the public on the street? And that's where NaloxBox comes in. So Jeff and his team started NaloxBox in 2017 and have been selling them ever since. There have been over 3,000 installed in places across the US to provide public access to naloxone and other rescue tools. However, the problem with this is that there is no monitoring of the NaloxBox. So box managers will have no way of knowing if there was an opening event that occurred, what happened at that opening event, or if there was naloxone taken out and it needs to be replaced, or if it's expired. We also have no way of collecting any data on the rescue events in general, and current technology like tamper locks and local alarms have no way of notifying us either. So we decided to address this with NaloxBox Plus and build an Internet of Things integrated device to detect and relay the opening events of the NaloxBox via cellular networking and cloud computing. So our aims are twofold. First, we have our research and development phase, where we conducted surveys and interviewers of current NaloxBox managers about their experiences with NaloxBox. And in order to improve our UI UX with the NaloxBox Plus, we also interviewed them on that. And then we also developed the hardware device for the actual IoT device. And finally, we implemented the pipeline and cloud system. And then in phase 2, we collected data for our observational study on both the operational characteristics of the device as well as any opening events that occurred. So to highlight some of our results from the interviews that we had, we interviewed 5 NaloxBox owners and managers at 5 organizations. where nalox boxes have currently been installed. And as you can tell, there's a wide range of, I guess, times that they think that the box has been opened. Some people say their box has never been opened. One person said that their box has been opened up to 12 times a month. So this is clearly a need that needs to be met, and we need to collect data on this. And then something else of note is that everyone who we interviewed has said that they or their staff has been trained to respond to opioid overdoses, making them the exact kind of bystander responders that can utilize the naloxone in the NaloxBox. As for the UI UX development, we wanted to ask who, when, and how they would like to be notified in order to make this the most effective survey experience possible. So from that, we tailored our notification system to notify the organization managers during workday hours via email. This is our hardware that we developed. We assembled the NaloxBox Plus devices you see on the left using a particle boron LTE-M device, a PCB, a printed circuit board, a magnetic reed switch, and a lithium polymer battery, all enclosed in a 3D printed enclosure. And we made 25 total pilot devices that we placed retrofit in the NaloxBox containers that already existed. So those were, some of them were first generation that you see in the center, some of them were second generation that you see on the right. So we placed them in places where there were already NaloxBoxes. Next is the pipeline. So the way that this data stream works is that the signal starts with the hardware. So when the box is open, the hardware knows to send the signal to the particle IoT infrastructure, which is where the boron chip comes in. The particle IoT infrastructure will then send it to the Azure cloud, which then prompts the user for a notification. So it'll tell the user, hey, your box was open. Please fill out this survey describing what happened during the opening event. The cloud will also send the data to be stored in our project database, where we will analyze it later. So this is a map of the different locations where we installed our NaloxBox Plus devices. There were 8 total sites where we installed 25 pilot devices, and they are mostly concentrated in Providence, Pawtucket. All right, so one of the main hurdles that we had to address in this situation was the problem of getting our device data to actually transmit and be stored in the final cloud. So sometimes the cellular connections would be not so good, and as a result, the data wouldn't be stored in the end. So in order to troubleshoot this, we had the device not only transmit a signal whenever there was an opening event, but also transmit every single day. So we call this a call home. So every day around a time of low congestion, so like 6 a.m. in the morning, we would have the devices all try to call home at this time and send any data that they were storing locally to the whole pipeline so that we could store it in the final database. And that way, as long as the device is called home at least once a week, which was the short-term storage time limit for the actual device, then the data wouldn't be lost and we would have all of it at the end. So overall, some statistics that we found were that the signal strength was pretty stable, but signal quality was poor. And the call home rate was pretty high of 83% median. The devices also consumed a median battery consumption of 0.1% per day per box. And in this total 6-month period, we studied 75 total opening events, 5 of which were opioid overdose events. All right, so of those 5 opioid overdose events, all 5 involved successful naloxone administration with effective naloxone administration and survival from the overdose. They were all also involved 911 calls, and the boxes were mostly the people who administer the naloxone, 4 out of 5 cases were done by facility managers and facility volunteers and staff. So ultimately, the takeaways here are that now the NaloxBox managers do receive the automatic notifications, which allow them to know better what's going on with their box and their facility in general, and be able to supply the restock of naloxone in a more timely manner. This also increases public access to emergency naloxone, and the pipeline is the successful implementation of our pipeline provides researchers with de-identified data on these opioid rescue resource patterns, which was an unmet need in the field. We are wrapping up this study currently and will maintain it throughout the year. However, after this year, we will uninstall the Nalox boxes that are not at high-profile sites. And that's pretty much it from me. If anyone has any questions.
If nobody has questions, I'm happy to jump in.
Okay, yeah.
Hi, Joanne. Thank you for such a nice presentation. I'm very new to the NaloxBox idea, and I really don't know much about it. And this is just a very, simple question, but how many doses of intranasal naloxone can a NaloxBox hold? And have there been discussions of whether you might be interested in stocking intramuscular naloxone, like maybe but one of each, or 2 doses or 4 doses rather?
I'd be happy to answer that.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, how are you? Our dear friend Michelle on the line here was the supplier of intramuscular naloxone when we first put Nalox boxes in communities in Rhode Island in 2017. That's all we had access to, and that's what we rolled with. So we know that's a much cheaper way to provide naloxone to the public, but at the same time, significant barriers on whether the public or responders have the ability to draw up a medicine into a syringe and inject it into
Right.
a neighbor. So currently, it seems like the most common answer for how much naloxone goes in these boxes in Rhode Island and otherwise is 2 cartons, so 4 total doses, 2 packs.
Perfect.
And that seems to be it's emerged as the go-to way that people are doing it. But I do know that other states have implemented intramuscular as well. And then some people took a very extreme. There's this other trend which is not settled. It's very much design is whether these are going to be for emergency use only or for take for future use, right? So in Indiana, they had a statewide implementation of Nalox boxes where they pretty much wanted to use these as Pez dispensers. They wanted to be like a free vending machine. And so they stuffed as many boxes as they could into the cabinet. So a very different philosophy. So I think it's a little bit up to the adopter as to how they would like to implement, whether intramuscular, intranasal, or just 1 or 2 boxes, or stuff it to the gill.
Yeah.
When we implemented them in Rhode Island, we really thought that if we put them in public places that we think are high need, if they were just kept on disappearing, then we'd have an indication maybe for further community outreach in that area, right? Maybe there wasn't enough person-to-person outreach, or other ways we engage people in access to treatment or recovery coach or whatever intervention. So it could be seen as a little bit of a litmus test. If it keeps disappearing from a spot, then there might be an unmet need for personal services.
Yeah, this is so fascinating, and it feels very ripe for a qualitative study if you're interested or have some plans to do something like that.
And that's a wonderful idea. I mean, there are a lot of different research questions that need to be addressed and should be addressed, and love to talk to you about that offline.
Yeah, perfect.
Any other questions, concerns? Michelle, it looks like Michelle posted here. She said if orgs are interested in intramuscular naloxone, Pony can definitely continue to supply. So certainly can reach out to her.
Yeah, I'll just share one brief story. And once again, we didn't have the monitoring when we first did these, 6 years ago. Our first reported rescue was intramuscular, and it was a remarkable thing where somebody brought it from a lobby in an elevator multi-story building up into a unit, and the person was a successful rescue. So it's not necessarily the best way to implement it, but it's remarkable that our first rescue was an intramuscular.
I just wanted to say that this is a great presentation, Joanne. Thank you. And it is 6 months, basically having 5 saves in 6 months. This technology provides so much more information, because it was really great data. And it is, of course, it's possible that every time that a NaloxBox was used, that it was reported if there's not that data, but we know that's not the case. And so this is a much better way to get to get the data, that's sort of all along, that's what we've been looking for. How do we know when naloxone is administered? And mostly it is an unknown. We have some data, but this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're thankful to the COBRE for the pilot support for this work. It was really tremendously, great engagement, and we want to thank you for the support for the project as well.